Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach. I am joined by my co-host and producer Holly Deschenes. So today we are going to be talking about the permission to be present. So this is about disconnecting from the past or detaching emotionally from the past, which is often why we project a lot of fears and anxieties into the future. So we're wanting to loosen our grip there and then come back to the present moment. So I've been listening to a lot of Alan Watts lately. I don't know if you're familiar, but
I'm not.
yeah, so he's a great philosopher. He's kind of in the 70s. He like bridged like East and West like philosophies, and there's a lot of like kind of Buddhist influence in there. But yeah, so he speaks a lot about being present, being in the moment. So that's what inspired today is I'm going to have a little bit of the Alan Watts influence. For those of you that haven't heard him, he's wonderful to listen to and really puts a lot of things into perspective to help ease your anxiety and kind of be more connected to the moment. So, yeah, I wanted to use this episode as an opportunity to kind of share some of those insights and ideas. And I think it's very easy to get kind of locked into a fear space, and once we're there, we start projecting case scenarios into the future. We're going to go a little bit into the past. We're going to go a little bit into the future today, and then how we get present. So, anything for you as we open this up, Holly?
No, I think it's a great topic. I have spent some time this week working with some leadership folks on some concepts that tie into this a little bit, but it's having to do with that idea of let's be in the reality of now and not project our worries of what happened in the past into the future. So it's pretty timely.
When we talk a lot about like the ego and identity and all these things, and that's your record of the past. So whatever's happened to you, good or bad, that's all stored there. And we're always looking to free up energy to create things consciously. When we have unresolved issues from the past, we're always kind of putting that out into the future. We think it's going to continue, but so much of this work is about breaking patterns, shifting perceptions and expectations so that, which is super powerful. If I'm zoned into an expectation of something is going to repeatedly happen, I'm not really fully participating in my life there. I'm kind of just replaying old tapes and expecting that to happen. We're always trying to shift those things so that we can be more connected and more present and make more conscious choices to intentionally create our life the way we want rather than the autopilot stuff that we always talk about. So it's very difficult because we have all these things that are distracting to us nowadays. Our attention's pulled all over the board. We talked a little bit last week. It's the attention economy, right? Everybody's competing for your attention. And whatever you focus your attention on, your history, your subconscious is going to start pushing things to the surface about what you believe, whatever you're giving your attention to. So, if we have some unresolved things back there, if we have some traumas, we can get triggered and emotionally activated pretty rapidly. And when we're in negative emotion, we are in the past. So we have all these things that are trying to grab our attention, get a reaction out of us. It's one of the most, once again, meditation is kind of, I feel like, the master tool because it is about learning to control your focus and not get so pulled off track all the time. And especially nowadays, that's increasingly more difficult because of all the things we have going on. So with this, it's the unresolved past. It's automatically going to get projected in the future if we're activated by the emotions. So if I'm stuck in a negative emotion and I have that narrative playing, I'm automatically going to assume that's going to continue. See, these are all patterns. And so that is this idea of expectation. And if we want a different outcome, we need to be able to shift our expectation to something more neutral or positive or optimistic so that we can start to create different outcomes. Because whatever we're giving our attention to, that's really where our power is. And so if we're going to own our power more, it is about basically shaving layers off these past situations so that they don't pull our attention as much. So our nervous system, our mind, its number one priority is our survival. And so that is going to be pulling from past data. So if something's a threat to me, my mind is going to pull up the instances of the past where I could get hurt or where I've been hurt previously. and it's going to remind me of those things. And so my mind is like literally stuck in the past. So when we talk about finding these permissions, when we talk about freeing up energy, it's unlocking the past so that I don't simply unconsciously recreate the same scenarios over and over again. So because that's what autopilot really means is I've unresolved stuff from my past that I'm unaware of, that I'm not conscious of. And I am just projecting that in the future. And I'm just acting based on reaction, meaning when an emotion pulls on me, I already have a response to that that I've trained myself for. I just keep recreating the same things over and over again. And so our power really is shifting out of that reactivity. And the way we do that is we examine the past and we understand it at a deeper level. And we try to come to peace with it. We try to forgive things so that I can unlock that energy that's stuck in self protection or self preservation. So it's that locked up energy that's got the story attached to it, that's got our expectations attached to it. We're always projecting that in the future because, especially if we've experienced something time and time again, and we've made the same decision over and over again, why would we expect anything different? The challenge is we think that if we're in a different environment, let's say I have a different job or I'm not around my family members as much as I used to be, we think that that frees us up. But the reality is these things are hardwired into your system and your mind is just kind of pulling ideas of, oh, it's linking things together of, oh, this is similar as something I experienced previously, and it's got a reaction to that. So it doesn't really matter what your environment is. You take you with you everywhere you go. When we have these things going on of, oh, like, I don't know how I created the same scenario if my circumstances are very different. It's because our software is very old. It's because we have the same thought processes and beliefs and all the things that make up our reality. All those things are still the same. So that's where we address things is we want to make changes to how you're seeing situations so that we're not continually building the same story over and over again, just slightly different versions of it. So the way to the past is simply this unprocessed pain or unresolved situations. And so we're anchored there. So our consciousness is literally stuck at these younger versions of ourselves. And if something was painful for me, that's where I want to protect things. So I have a strategy on how to solve that. And those might be avoidance patterns. I might have these escape routes built out of whenever this situation comes up. This is what I do to distract myself. So we might have these different workarounds. And so that's what keeps us stuck in the loops. Our memories are real, but they have power over them if they're left in this unresolved place, which unresolved, I define it as we've left it in a negative emotion and we've also left it in a negative story. So when I remember that idea, it doesn't feel good to me and I have a negative narrative I tell myself about it. And so the things that we haven't figured out or we haven't learned from, that's left in this unresolved place. And so if I can't solve a problem, it starts to become part of myself, my identity. I start to build this into myself of I'm not good at this or I struggle here. And then we're going to put labels on it and we're going to basically close that door and shut those emotions down. So what those things do is like if we're not working through them, it goes from the subconscious to the unconscious. So it goes deeper into our mind of like, this is who I am and I don't believe I'm any different. When all these things, they're flexible, we can work with them and we can improve anything. But once it's gotten to that point of I've kind of given up on it and it's too painful to look at anymore, so I stuff it away. Now that becomes an unconscious motivation. So that's where I really start to be driven by something painful, or I start to be driven by trying to prevent my fears from happening or reliving things. But what the unconscious is it communicates through our feelings. If we're not listening to our feelings, we can't break those patterns. And so with this work, we're trying to address that. We're trying to take a look a little bit deeper. Hey, why was this so? Once again, we're not discounting anything that's happened to you. It's more of what are we going to do about it now? And that's where we have power in the present moment. And I can, as an adult, I can look at things from childhood and I can make different decisions about them. But when they were happening, that was too stressful. I didn't have the skills to cope with it. So I formed these blanket negative ideas to really kind of hammer that into my system. And so it's about addressing these things from this new perspective, this more mature perspective, And we're always going to want to move towards some sort of softening of the emotions and the story behind it. And so the more we understand it, now we can start to have some compassion and start to bring in some of that forgiveness that we always talk about to try and loosen up and free up that energy so we're not stuck at this younger age in our mind. So, this immature thinking, if left in the place of pain, we just keep projecting it into the future. But you'll see this quite often. A lot of people, they might have like a lot of things together in their life, but there might be like one area that's kind of a disaster still. Yeah, they might really struggle in certain things. And that's going to be this like younger version of them is just locked up in the past where they haven't opened it up to work through those problems. And so there's all these huge disconnects going on, right? So when we suppress emotions, when we push them to the side, when we don't take a look at things again, now we start to have these kind of strange scenarios where you might be kind of questioning, why does this person think this way? Because it doesn't make sense for this situation. So that's being out of touch with reality is we're just simply locked into a younger mindset that's got all these heavy emotions wrapped around it. So the thinking around is very distorted. So
Well,
go ahead.
I'm wondering if you have any examples of that younger mindset that might be carried forward, just to give a little more specifics to folks of, oh, this is an example of something, I don't know, common.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you'll see this a lot financially. If you're raised in a household where there's a lot of stress and volatile emotions, a lot of struggle around finances, some of that stuff may still be in a stage where commonly you'll see it where people may be making a lot of money. You see like millionaires that are still in a very much scarcity mindset. It's because it's all these locked away emotions, what that kind of drove them to create all that, but they're part of them still stuck in this idea of like the scarcity and there's never enough. That's a common one. You'll see it a lot in relationship because when we're talking about relationship, it's this idea of how I give and receive love and what's my relationship to that is going to be dependent on how my caregivers treated me, right? So how did I have to earn love? Did I have to perform and achieve to get love? Those types of things. Once money can come into that too, like how was that dealt with? Was I made to feel guilty for anything I needed growing up? All these ideas start to trigger the anxieties and the fears within us as we approach into adulthood, where it might not be our current situation anymore, but we have these big reactions to smaller problems. That's a pretty good indication we're stuck in the past is the emotional reaction isn't matching up with the magnitude of what's actually going on. So many people are just, yeah, this isn't a big deal, but to that person, it's this whole body, kind of emotional flooding experience attached to very negative, intense stories. And that's going to be buried guilt and shame. So it's the disconnects are like, is reality lining up here? Like, does this make sense? Because when we're in that realm of emotion, it can be very chaotic. And we tend to think that a lot of people that claim they're objective thinkers, they just learn to bury and suppress emotions, right? They have all these things playing out that don't make sense. But if you ask them, they think they're being very objective. So that's the disconnect there is like they're totally dissociated from their feelings, which is actually your feedback in the moment that those are your cues to make adjustments is like, what do I believe about this? You have to be able to feel those things to understand yourself. And so when somebody's so numb and suppressed that they don't really feel anything, now they're going to claim their objectives. They're going to claim that they're seeing these things accurately, but it's like, it's just still being filtered through a bunch of buried emotions. That's kind of anywhere you see those things of like, things aren't lining up. Reality's not clicking here. Anywhere really where we have a weakness. So in a weakness, I classify that as so my emotions and my thought process are in an immature place. And so that means when I had something painful happen to me, I just formed a blanket opinion about that situation. And I started to build beliefs around that. So I embody this idea that's false. I embody this it's like kind of our mind takes a snapshot in the moment and it just like picks up any information we can grasp at that level of our consciousness. So if I'm under a lot of stress and I'm very young, my thoughts aren't that deep. Okay, so I'm just going to look for everything that's wrong with that and I'm going to store that data. And so I might believe a lot of things that don't make sense relative to that situation anymore. So that's what I would classify as a weakness. It's like an underdeveloped part of ourselves. And we only get access to improve those things when we take that deeper look. It's about being vulnerable and it's about unearthing the shame behind it and opening it up and really questioning our thinking so that we can see that situation differently.
When we're thinking about these past stories and beliefs and things that we're attached to that we keep repeating in our life, how does that impact our future thinking?
Our outlook is going to be determined by who we believe we are. And so that's going to be this accumulation, this combination of our past. We like stability, we like continuity. Most people consider change very hard. I really don't, other than once we get to these emotions, changes happen naturally. But we try to force the changes at surface level thinking of like, oh, if I just adopt this strategy, that's going to alter my future. But these deep unconscious motivations, they stick with us and we see everything through that lens until we heal it. And so we're really motivated to draw those experiences to us so that we can become aware of them. That's going to be somebody attracted to a relationship that they know is bad for them or a toxic relationship. That's somebody trying to work out their pain. I'm only drawn to this because it's mirroring things to me about myself. So that's how, it's basically I'm reliving the past until I learn the lessons. Okay, so if I'm not doing that, that affects my possibilities I see for myself. So once again, we want the continuity, we want the stability. We're just thinking that I'm on this linear path and as long as I take these steps, everything's going to go okay or whatever, or I'll be safe. And the thing is, the subconscious, unconscious is communicating us with us through feelings. I might be heading in a direction. I might feel like I'm making progress, but as I'm living my life, these things are getting activated because I'm interacting with other people and we don't live in a bubble. We have to do that, by and large. When these things get activated, it pulls me into the past. And so that affects my future outlook. I start to try and avoid these things from happening in the future. So I might overplan. I might start to create a lot of control in my life where I'm trying to manipulate my environment to create some stability so that I can avoid those feelings. So what it does is eventually, it essentially creates this smaller life over time of I find more and more things that I need to protect myself from so I don't have to feel the intense emotions. So when we're not addressing what we're feeling, that just continues to grow over time because our mind is still stuck in the past. Now I feel like if I plan every detail, if I control all these variables, I'll get the result. And, sometimes we can manipulate our way to the result. But once we get there, we realize it's empty. We realize that, oh, I thought this thing that was going to fix me and it didn't. I still feel just as empty inside. All these strategies are to create an outcome, but it's built on this shaky foundation. So this foundation, we take it with us everywhere. And so you could get all the outcomes, you could get all the results, and you could still be miserable. And you see this a lot with high performers of they start to create externally, they start to make things happen, but it's coming from this place of lack. It's coming from this place of pain. And so that pain doesn't go away until we address it. But it is about freeing up that energy from the past. That's what this is always about. Because as I adjust how I see the past, now I start to open up new possibilities for my future because I'm no longer motivated by that. I'm going to be more relaxed. I'm going to be more at ease. I'm not going to be trying to guard against every little problem because I solved the problems. Okay, so I don't feel like anything's going to come up and bite me in the ass, right? Okay, I understand how I'm creating my reality now because I'm more conscious of what I'm feeling inside.
So can we just for a second talk about, I mean, I think about it, the feeling that will be most common that people will associate with the future stuff, right, is anxiety. And today, in fact, I had a conversation with someone who shared the equivalent of everything's good in my life right now and I have no reason to feel anxious, but I'm finding myself feeling randomly anxious for no conscious reason. So I'm just wondering in that example to talk about that anxiety feeling because in some of what you're saying, it's like makes perfect sense. We like shrink the world to or shrink our world to avoid the feeling. But in this case, the feeling is coming up anyway,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. Well, obviously, many people struggle with anxiety. And so there's a couple of avenues we can go here. One is anxiety could be this cue to your future potential. Like it could be like something you need to break through to get to your next level. And that kind of scares you because you don't know what that's going to look like. It could be I know I'm not being honest with myself or living authentically, right? It could be like I don't feel like myself in my life, and that's not going to sit well with me. It could be I'm projecting worst case scenarios into the future, and that's probably going to be because of a lot of disappointment and letdown. Or many times when we have less awareness, when we're younger and we're just trying to figure life out. Every step of the way, we are creating some sort of situation. We just don't know it. And so this work is about being more conscious. I may worry about a lot of things in the future because there's so many unresolved things from the past, but also I'm not learning the lessons. And so I kind of expect bad things to happen to me. Like I can't ever be happy because maybe the rug got pulled a bunch of times, or maybe I got let down by, somebody I loved or was very important to me, or it could be teachers, mentors, anything like that. It's going to be that's fearing the future is going to be more of you were on a track and then something derailed you and you don't understand what happened. So now because that's happened before and it's happened a lot, I can't forecast the future because I don't trust the future. I feel like if I move in this direction, I'm going to get blindsided by something. And oftentimes, that could be with unpredictable parents, very volatile moods. You never know what they're going to be like when they come home from work that day. That's generally what creates that is we start to have all these negative ideas about ourselves because we're raised in a very unstable environment. So we can't trust things. If I've had betrayal, right? If somebody's really hurt me, been cheated on or screwed over in a business deal or, whatever it is, backstabbing, like from a coworker, all that stuff is going to create this anxiety of like, oh, like I didn't see that coming and it really hurt me. So I don't trust myself to have the awareness to see those things moving forward. So that's why we always go back and address what happened, because if not, we're going to be fearing that the rest of our lives. It's stuck in this unresolved place. And I'm just going to be continually, once again, it always shrinks your world. It always starts to close off and be like, oh, I don't trust this person. Everything starts to give you anxiety because you're not sure where the attack's going to come from. So the reality is, you know, there's also the self ownership part. It's like maybe I'm doing things unconsciously that are creating some of these situations too. Maybe I'm not communicating effectively. Maybe I'm hiding in situations. Maybe I'm not following through with people, right? Maybe I'm creating scenarios where people aren't sure of me. And so they're just kind of mirroring that behavior back to me because that's what I'm putting off. There's so many different angles we could take this with, but anxiety is just this idea of I'm not sure what the future is going to bring. And some of us might have some really intense thinking around that if we've gone through a lot of pain and trauma, but we might have a very bleak outlook on the future. Everything can look put together on paper, but it's always about what we feel inside. That's what we carry. And what we carry is our past, where it's going to be coming from. We work through the anxiety by shining a light on it, addressing the fears, owning our part of it, being like, what did I do to create the situation? There's they're co-creations, meaning it's I have my part and the other people have their part. And this dance that goes on creates the scenario where we start to tell ourselves a story about it. And that's this idea of judgment. So I judged the situation in a negative light. And so my system programmed that into me to not trust this type of person. Or when once again, if we have a betrayal in a relationship, it's gonna be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, you can't trust men, you can't trust women, right? Like they're all like this, they're all like that. So that's all just built on pain. And so that really affects your outlook on the future. If I have these things in the background that I feel like are going to come back, you know, I am going to be hesitant. I'm going to be protecting myself. I might be on lockdown. I might not be communicating effectively. That's going to be affecting how I create the future because like I'm not really stepping fully into it. On a lot of levels I'm hiding or avoiding. That's what's going to kind of create that dynamic where I don't know how to create better results because I'm not actually fully participating. I'm stuck in the past and I'm trying to protect myself from all these things. And so I can't fully move forward. All we're trying to do is free up that past energy so that we could be present, which is in tune with reality. Nobody's perfect. We all have things we struggle with. If we want to make improvements, you know, we have to be in tune with that feedback that's always going on, and that's going to be our feeling. The other aspects, so we have the anxiety, which also kind of interplays with this idea of needing to control things, right? And I think a lot of us do this in relationships. Like if I have a fear, I'm interacting with another person, I feel like there's ways that they can hurt me. And so I'm going to try to guard against that. And so that's where we start to manipulate situations. That's where we try to control. And it's usually under this guise of like, I'm trying to protect myself. I'm already like setting myself up to for criticism and judgment of the other person. Because if I'm not feeling inside, I'm just taking all those negative feelings and I'm projecting it on the other person. And so I might need to feel like I need to control or manipulate so that I don't actually have to feel those things anymore. But it's not a good plan. That's what damages and ruins relationships. It's we all have our work to do. We all have a past, and it's never about controlling another person. If I feel like I need to control something, that's just because at one point in my life I felt very powerless. So I didn't trust. I didn't feel like there's anything I could do to change my situation, and so I adopt through anger this this kind of attitude that I need to be in control because that's what's safe. I'm trying to regain that power by trying to manipulate and control things around me, but that's always a losing game because like nobody actually wants to be controlled. That's not a good energy to bring to a relationship. Everybody is doing the best they can, and it's like that's where we, as we do our own work, we develop self compassion, which allows us to be more compassionate with others and their struggles. If somebody has a big weakness, if you know if they really struggle in a certain area, well, when we're talking about relationship, well, I might be a good complement to that person, and that means like I'm strong where they're weak and they're strong where I'm weak. That's where you take the lead in that situation if you figure that area of your life out. Is you have a healthier mindset, a more mature mindset around that area. You're not going to be wanting to put yourself in the hands of somebody that might be quite the opposite, might be very weak there. And so we tend to want to control and manipulate those things, but it's about stepping more fully into yourself. And it's just yeah, this is an area where I I have to take responsibility because like I might be the strong one here. And I might want somebody to take that burden off me, but they might not be qualified for that yet. So that's what support is. It's the recognition of these things. It's that we all have these differences. And so it's finding the recipe to make things work. And so that means I acknowledge my faults, they acknowledge their faults. And as long as we have this kind of understanding of each other, you can make things work pretty well. Where I'm not expecting somebody to be strong where they're weak. I might expect them to work on that. I might expect them to want to develop those skills and I can help and support them through that. But ultimately, if I'm weak in an area, that just means I have pain there or I don't have any experience there. So I don't have enough information to pull from to be confident. And so we can't allow somebody that's very weak in an area. 'Cause let's say if the dynamics off, those are the things that we're trying to protect ourselves from. So many of us grew up in households where maybe parents had some weaknesses, but they were doing the best they could and they were trying to figure it out. And we may have been subjected to a lot of weaknesses. And so that's what creates the need to control another person is we're trying to avoid those things so that we don't have to go through those same struggles. And the thing is it's really these things are internal. And so that's why we go back to those points in time and we try to heal those things so that we're not putting that on our partner or the people we're interacting with. We're doing the best we can given the situations, but then we're also more compassionate about people that are struggling because I no longer feel like it's going to hurt me, but I understand it at a deeper level. So I can be helpful from that perspective.
So this is a maybe a personal question from me in the middle of this podcast. It's fine.
Hmm.
Can avoidance be a form of control?
Yeah. I mean, it can be. Sometimes that may be a strategy we used in order to regain power, right? So if I'm disconnected from somebody and I'm avoiding them or silent treatment or whatever, and that person's like thinking about that all the time, that might put me back in the power dynamic. Okay. So it could be a strategy to regain control is to withdraw things, which is very common. I think many of us were raised on conditional love, which just means that I'm only accepted or cared for or loved if I act a certain way. So if I don't behave that way, then that's withdrawn from me. And then that person starts chasing that. So this can be a form of control because it's a manipulation and it might not be fully conscious either. It might be like, well, this is the strategy I used and this is what got me through some things. But I might not be conscious of the other end of what that's doing to the other people involved.
So the goal and all of the things we just talked through, right? Possible anxieties, manipulation of situations, wanting to control other people. All of this is sort of feels like we're in the future and the past. So let's just talk a little bit about if we're not in the future or we're not in the past and we're sitting in presence, true presence, what does that feel like?
Well, so in presence, we have full access to our energy. So my coaching, my number one job is to get somebody to relax, especially athletes. We're trying to get them in this performance state. And so that just means I don't have activated emotions from the past. Okay, so we're trying to clean up the mindset to just be connected to the moment where I trust that I have this ability to navigate situations as they come up. A lot of times, like, so we get very attached to plans, triathlon specifically of like, oh, this is my strategy of like, this is how I'm going to do the best in this scenario. And we tend to overthink things. But the thing with life is there's so many different variables that we can't control and we can't possibly know until we start doing things. So presence is about being grounded. It's being well from a perspective, we're trying to get grounded in the present moment of like I've trained very hard for this. I'm ready. I prepared, I planned as much as I possibly can in terms of I familiarize myself with the situation and I have different avenues I can take but depending on what happens. It's trying to get to this relaxed state and in that relaxed state, our training and the things we've learned can flow through us. We don't have to think very much. If we're thinking, that usually means we're in reaction, meaning something came up, something got activated from our past, and now that's pulling my focus. Okay, so rather than me being 100% here, I'm part of the old tapes are playing in the background. And if I have intense emotions behind those are going to be taking up more and more of that percentage. I might go from 100% here to something very stressful happens. And now I'm only like 60% here. And 40% of me is like guarding against the past. And the past is coming up because it's telling me the same old stories. So my mind is split and the split attention, that's what decreases performance. The peak performance is going to be me being completely present, me trusting that my ability to navigate challenges as they surface. And that's me meeting the challenges and working through them and trusting that I have the skill set to solve them. So we're going to be grounded. We're going to feel alive, meaning like the energy's flowing in us, meaning I'm like very connected. And that's why practice is so important. And this isn't just with athletes, this is everything. It's like, okay, so with coaching, I've been doing this a number of years now. Every session in the beginning, it'd be all this prep work and all this trying to get myself into the right frame of mind. Now I can just step into it. That's what confidence is like it's a part of you. And when you can relax into the moment, you have everything you need. Right. And so it's being able to trust that. It's also being able to connect with people. So, in my session work, I work with many different types of people. It's just getting on the phone and being present with them, listening to what they have to say, kind of reading their energy. And every session takes on a life of its own. Every experience is different. I might say the same idea, but it's going to be a different way, right? Like it's all these things. When you're in flow, you have access to all this stuff. All we're trying to do is, like, presence is flow, but it's also I'm completely here, meaning that kind of puts off an energy to it, right? People can feel that. I think many of us probably recognize that when there are certain people that are very impressive to just be around. And that's generally going to be, they're just very here. They're not in stress. That confidence just oozes through because you're not guarding yourself against the past. You've conquered a lot of those things. And so you can step into an arena and you trust who you are. So you're not trying to strategize. You're not trying to manipulate anything. You're not trying to control variables, but you just feel comfortable in the moment. So that's what we're always trying to get to. But it's also in relationship when we're trying to connect with another person, or intimacy is this idea of I'm kind of I'm releasing the wounds. Like I'm opening myself up. I'm trusting the other person so that I can connect with them on a deeper level. That's more about surrendering our guard. And that's more about releasing shame. As we let that go, we don't need to hide ourselves anymore, and we can be open with other people. That's where true authenticity starts to flow, is when we drop our guard, is when we've worked through so many problems and solved so many things that we don't like fear outcomes because we know we're going to get through them. I can trust myself. And even if I do get buried, even if I am having a big problem or struggling, I know I have the skills to get through it. So I don't need to fear that work, because that's what's so cool is as you do these things, you gain the confidence to conquer so many things in the future, right? You just know it's the same process over and over again, where you're just trying to deepen your learning, you're trying to deepen your understanding. And as we start to integrate that information, now these things start to come natural to us. So we're shifting out of intellectualizing things, which I'm like in the ego still. I'm only using that conscious part of my mind, which is, 5 to 10%. That's a limited brain power. But when I'm in alignment with something, all the dots connect and I embody it. So that's what we try to get to with this work, is we're trying to embody principles and ideas, ways of being that allow us to continually progress and move forward, and really enhance all areas of life because we're more and more present with them. So a lot of times we're in these situations, one, before we even go into them, because of the anxiety, we're already trying to script things. We're already trying to form these ideas moving into it. And so that's not me being present. Okay. That's me strategizing things to manipulate a certain outcome. Okay. But if I just show up and I trust myself, I'm not going to be thinking too much. I'm going to be in tune with the situation, and I'm going to be responding accordingly. I'm not going to be reacting from the past. So it's more about, if I'm too much in my head, that means I'm not present. So presence is where your energy is spread out throughout your whole body. You're centered in your heart, and so your mind kind of shuts off. Anybody that's in peak performance, it's always, I'm relaxed. I wasn't thinking about anything, right? I was having fun, all those ideas. And that's when we perform the best. That's when we're the most attractive, in terms of, it could be job wise, it could be charisma with people, it could be like all those different things. It's like I'm just present with them, and that presence has an energy. People can feel that. So when we drop the guard, when we trust ourselves to move forward into the future, that's where we can start to connect the dots to being here.
I was gonna say something too. You touched on it a little bit there, right around this idea of like when you're fully present, you're gonna have your peak performance. And I think for anybody that works maybe a corporate role or something where they've got to show up, present on a topic, I don't know, I make it up. It's the same. I just want you to say more about how it's the same, because I think people could think about it like, well, yeah, of course, when I'm out running or swimming or
Mm.
some playing a sport or something that's physical, and when I'm fully present, it's the most fun. But it's the same
Mhm.
in a different setting. And the example I'll just give really quickly is in the work that I do outside of this podcast, right? There's like a development aspect associated with it. And there are days when I get the opportunity to really be in that work. And I don't, and to your point, I don't have to think about what I'm going to say or what I'm going to teach or what I'm going to work on in those moments. So again, to the point that it's the most fun, but I just want you to say more about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think athletes get it the most because there's so much preparation that goes into it, and then there's always a build up to events like a game or a race or whatever. It's just like I'm putting all this practice and work into something, and so when I go to perform in an event, that just means I have to let loose. I have to be present, and the adrenaline kicks in and all that stuff. And we tend to think other areas of life are different, but they're really not. It might take a different energy, but ultimately it's about alignment. It's about being dedicated to your work and discipline. And that's always going to be the easiest through our passions. So the thing, you love Enneagram, right? Your hunger for that allowed you to deepen your knowledge to a point of you're really confident with it. We're always going to be best in those areas, okay? Where it's going to be more natural where our passions lie. Because when we have a passion for something, we don't fear the work. We're excited to do the work. And so we build this positive association with it. It's easier to access it through the things you're really interested in. It is about whatever the situation is, it's about getting into alignment with it. And so that means as I build up to something, and that could be a presentation, it could be whatever it is. It's like we're it's a I'm focusing my attention on I want to perform my best here. What do I need to do that? What do I need to align with that situation? So there is going to be prep work involved with that. That means whatever my anxieties are around that situation, I'm going to start to address them. How can I feel better about this? How can I feel more confident? How can I see the situation in a way as it's an opportunity for me, right? How can I put a positive spin on I want to do well here because it could lead to things. It's creating this momentum for me to really step into it and shine and enjoy that moment. It's really just about calming the anxieties of the past, reconciling or resolving the things that are standing in our way. And, last week we talked about being seen, being visible. That's a conflict. Most people fear public speaking, all those things, right? That's all visibility. And that's, fear of embarrassment or will I say the wrong thing? And you know what? When you're in alignment, you don't worry about those things because you trust yourself. So it's about building the self trust. And we do that through the work. I'm cleaning up the past. I'm deepening my understanding and knowledge base behind whatever I'm about to do. And and once I and it's this consistency that we need with that. So if I'm working on something every single day of my life because I'm obsessed about it or I have a passion around it, it's going to be a lot easier to be confident there. So our idea is we just want to approach these things of everything's a growth opportunity. And if I'm struggling with it now, part of it, part of me getting to that place where I can be fully present is by taking a risk, and that's putting myself out there and getting some data from my experiences. Because when I go put myself in a situation I'm uncomfortable with, that's going to bring up things from my past and it's going to show me what I believe about that situation. And that's why I feel like it didn't go well, is because I have all these internal judgments about myself in relationship to that topic. And so with imposter syndrome, what you'll see is a lot of people have like done the work to be superstars. They can be accepted, present well, be well spoken, connect with others, but they have these stories locked in their mind that they're not good enough. And that's attached to past pain, right? And they haven't updated their mind. Their feedback from other people will be like, oh, you did amazing, you did great, I really love this, but they don't like feel it inside. That's where the work is that prevents you from taking even bigger risks. That prevents you from taking the bigger steps because you're stuck, your mindset is in this place of staying small. So it is about each experience is an opportunity for growth and it's an opportunity for feedback. And that's to basically close this gap from my past to my present. If I'm stuck in the past, it's always going to feel bad and I'm going to be in my head about it. So I'm just trying to shut off the mind. And I do that when I'm present. The more we practice that, it's called getting into alignment. That just means like every single morning I wake up, I feel my emotions and I'm like, what's going on with me today? I understand it. And I try to bring everything to a balanced place. And then that's where I start to act from, because I know that balanced place is where I'm going to be dialed into ideas and be able to create better and be able to connect better with my clients. It's practices that get you into alignment, which just means I'm present, I'm here. I'm not functioning in these old stories. Where you're really strong, it's going to be much easier to do that than the places you struggle, but you can get there with the places you struggle if it's important. If it's a necessary thing for you to develop, we need to do that hard work to bring that up to speed. And that just means I need to clean up the past around it, or I need to deepen my knowledge there. So this stuff's all the same. It doesn't really matter. I work from the nervous system perspective, which means if there's tension and stress in your body, there's something from your past that's unresolved. And if we fix that, now you can relax more and you can be more present. Okay. That's really the only goal I'm ever trying to do. And this whole work I do is I'm just offering perspectives that are calibrated to balance you out rather than keep you stuck in the negative emotion. Okay, so all we're trying to do is neutralize negative emotion, because that brings you to the present moment. Everybody has gifts and skills that they bring with them all the time, but they can't realize those if they have all these negative judgments about them from their past. Okay. So all we're ever trying to do is clean that stuff up. Permission to evolve is is only about offering perspectives so you get out of the past. That's all I'm doing here. And I'm going to talk about it in a million different ways until you can see it. But this stuff is really, really simple once you see it. If I'm in negative emotion, there's something from my past that got activated. That tells me old stories. And now I'm stuck in a loop and I'm going to keep recreating that if I stay plugged into that idea. So I need to sharpen my focus. I need to develop my focus to be able to orient to the things that are meaningful to me, that feel the best to me. And I need to practice this idea of getting into alignment, which just means I'm present, where I've addressed all the worries and anxieties in my mind. I've put those to bed so that I can be right here. And then when I'm right here, now I just do my work. And that gets programmed into my system from this positive place. Okay. Of like, I'm learning so much faster because I'm connected to what I'm doing. And that's everything good happens in the moment. And it's only the fears from the past, the pain from the past that basically hijacks this whole circuit. All we're trying to do is restore that balance. All we're trying to do is get you to let go of holding the grudge, the resentment, the regrets, all those things, and see yourself as this ongoing work in progress where anything you want to learn, anything you want to get better at, it's really about finding that balance in your system and acting from that place. And that's where you're going to build confidence from, because you have this stable foundation that's connected to reality. So we think reality is these thoughts in our head. Reality is right here, and there's not a lot of thinking. We're just trying to observe right now. But if I'm making judgments about right now, I'm stuck in the past. I formed ideas a long time ago, and I'm still buying into them. And that's what's holding me back.
Yeah, that was really good. Okay. So if folks are listening to this podcast and they're thinking about the ways that they want to bring more presence into their own life, like what are a few things you would say to them?
Yeah. So we talk about all the time meditation, which is about having a singular focus. That's just paying attention to what you're feeling, what's going on inside you, not attaching to the distractions of the mind. And so all we're trying to do is train our focus to be able to maintain our attention on things, because that attention is what's going to determine what we're building from. So if I can stay focused on something for an extended period of time and I'm feeling good about it, I'm going to be able to build a lot better from that place than acting out of fear or stress. So we're trying to just first train our focus. And so that just can mean I might focus on a flame. I might focus on sensation. I might go sit in nature and just look at the water or the trees or whatever it is. Like I'm just trying to bring my attention to one thing and I'm just trying to be with that. That's me being present. My mind's going to have thoughts. It might be like, oh, this is stupid. It might be worrying about all the problems of the day, but we're always just trying to bring it back to here. and what's real, what's right in front of us. We're going to want to implement some breath work. The main key here is we're trying to relax, because when we're relaxed, we're not protecting ourselves. So the big cue is we're trying to take deep breaths to calm our nervous system. So if I'm in fight or flight all the time, which is stress, the other side is the rest and digest, which is like me relaxing and me kind of shutting my mind off. Okay, so that's getting into the body. And so we're just going to be taking deep breaths to try and calm our system. And if our system won't calm, then we need to use some positive self talk or neutral self talk. We're trying to just say blanket phrases that make us feel safe and calm and okay about whatever the situation is. We're just trying to reinforce that messaging to bring calm to our system. Because if we're calm, we're safe. Now my system's open, it's not shut down and contracted. Um, and if our mind's stuck on some loops, that's where we journal. We write some things down and we start to question it. Why do I think this way? Where did this come from? Is there a different way I can see this? We try to go deeper into the thought spirals to understand what's at the bottom of it, because it's just your nervous system trying to communicate with you what the threats are. And if we address the threats, that's how we calm anxiety. We just take a look at it and we try to understand it better. And then you'll notice that you'll start to relax more around those situations. We may be catastrophizing. We may be seeing worst case scenarios. And basically, we're going to try and disprove those. We're going to be like, yeah, that's not actually going to happen. And here's why, right? Like we want to, or these are things I could do to prevent that, right? We want to start to work the puzzle to try and create some calm centeredness in our system. And that's going to be questioning our thoughts, being curious about what's underneath them and resolving those conflicts. Yeah, just finding little moments throughout the day to take a step back, pause, set things down, not worry about it. Many of us have very busy minds, and we're just trying to create a slower pace to create that center. And so give yourself permission to feel. Let's feel the feelings, because if we don't feel them, they either just get louder or we suppress them. And either one, that's going to create more and more stress in the system. And that's going to take us away from being present. So a lot of the same recommendations over and over again here, but there's, like I said, this is very simple once you get it. These are the tools. This is how it works. So it's about just spending time with yourself and getting to a clear place. And that's where all the good stuff happens is when we're in this kind of relaxed, peaceful state. Now all the good things start to get born from that place. Now I'm not operating out of reaction. I can make conscious choices about how I'm going to create my life.
That's awesome. I'm just gonna add here too, we did a video while we were in Colorado where you talked specifically about the different kinds of meditation. It's really good. So I'll make sure that that gets linked up
Ooh.
to this also. If folks are interested in outside of the YouTube that I just mentioned, interested in going deeper with you, learning more about this work, working with you, what are the
Yeah.
best ways for them to connect with you? And then also what have you got kind of coming up that you're thinking about, gonna launch, etc.
But yeah, so I appreciate you guys listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, let me know how I can help. Let me know some topics you want some help with. There's similar ideas over and over again, but this is how you actually get to the bottom of it. I've tried a million things. This is the simplest I could ever make this. If you're looking for some attention on some personal issues that you're struggling with, you can book a free strategy call on my website, brandonthilk.com. It's just 30 minutes. I'll get a feel for what you got going on and share how I can help. But at the bottom of it, we're just regulating your nervous system. We're shifting perspectives. We're trying to get you to find peace over the things that you've struggled with. So also on my website, you can register for my newsletter, the Lightning Report. So I send that out every Monday. So it's got a recap of the week and some insights for you to work on, reflection exercises, and also updated news of what I've got going on. So please subscribe to that. Also, check me out on socials at Brandon Thielk for Instagram. Post there pretty regularly, at bthelk on TikTok. And yeah, so we're going to be putting together a in-person group event here soon. I'll also be putting out some webinars. So for the in-person event, we'll be shooting for maybe late October, something in Madison, Wisconsin area. And so that's going to be some opportunity to get some It's going to be some teaching, but then there's also going to be some direct group coaching. So we'll just dig in and you can learn from the group. We all have similar struggles here. Like I said, I'm only looking to find balance in your system, and everything good comes from that place. And it can be difficult to see that for ourselves, right? So that's why it's important to have support and people that can kind of see the bigger picture of what's going on, that can really fast track things for you. So, yeah, just be on the lookout for the offerings coming up. I'd love to see you. I'd love to hear from you. And once again, if there's any way you can support this work, that'd be great. So, like, subscribe, follow, all those things, and let me know if you need anything.
Yeah, sounds good. So all the stuff Brandon mentioned will be linked in the show notes if you're listening to this, or if you happen to be watching on YouTube. Like I've already mentioned, all the links will be there. Yeah, this one was good.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next time.
All right. Talk to you later.